Good afternoon and welcome to AHDB's July Bluetongue update. I'm Emily Udall. I work in the Dairy Knowledge Exchange team and I will be chairing today. So we will have our speakers today. Gordon Hickman from DEFRA, the head of exotic disease control, will be explaining about policy on the restriction zones and recent cases in this vector season. We will have Sarah Peterson from Wales Animal Health and Welfare Framework Group will be giving us an overview of the Don't Wait, Vaccinate campaign currently running in Wales. And finally, Zoe Lloyd from AHDB will be taking us through the Battle Bluetongue movement checker and other resources available. Then we are also kindly joined by Phil Thomas, the Director of Wales Veterinary Science Centre, and Natalie Sampson, the Deputy CVO for Wales, to support us in answering your questions after the presentation. So firstly, just a little bit of housekeeping. The webinar is being recorded and will be circulated within 24 hours. And for those that haven't signed up, it will be available on the AHDB website as well. We'll hear from our speakers and then we've got plenty of time left at the end for questions. So do put your questions in the question box on the right-hand side of your screen. And at the end of the webinar, please do complete the feedback form. It'd be great to hear what you thought. And if you've got any other questions or topics, we can try and make sure they're covered for you. So we will head straight to Gordon for our Bluetongue policy update, please.
Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for inviting me along. So I'm just going to very briefly go through the current situation with Bluetongue in England and the controls there. We'll perhaps allude to some of the movements into Wales and Scotland. Next slide. Just a reminder, we're now in the new vector season, but for last year, there were a total of 263 Bluetongue cases. 260 of them were in England and 2 of them were in Wales. And those were Bluetongue 3, and there was a single case of Bluetongue 12 down on the south coast. That's the map that shows where those locations were, and we've discussed before, but our original controls were originally designed to try and keep the disease in the east of the country whilst we developed vaccines, which still remains the best way of control. And we gradually moved the zone out as we detected disease as it spread further west. And that's where the zone was in May at the last time we extended it, and then we moved to the single England RZ on the 1st of July. Next slide. So this is just a quick summary of how we found those cases. So nearly half the cases were detected through report cases. So this was farmers or vets reporting clinical disease, and the rest were detected through either pre-movement tests or through surveillance, either active surveillance or targeted surveillance. As you know, the clinical impact of the disease was relatively low in England last year. We did have some additional excess deaths, but the clinical picture was on the whole relatively mild disease, but still enough to get that number of report cases through. Next slide, please. So on the 1st of July, and in accordance with our policy, we moved to a whole England restricted zone, and that moved on the 1st of July. I'll say a little bit more about the restrictions in that zone later on, but just a reminder that this was on the assumption that vaccination is the key to controlling the disease in the long term. If you do vaccinate, then you do need to report it within 48 hours. We're now in the new vector season that actually ended on the 23rd of March. but it did take a little bit of time for those midges to become active and for the temperatures to reach a level where onward disease transmission can take place. Not sure I've shared this map before, but the blacker the colour, and if it gets to black, it means that the cumulative temperature since the 22nd of March means that a midge can have gone through the extrinsic incubation period and so is capable of transmitting disease. So I think the take-home message is pretty much all of England, pretty much all of Wales, and a good chunk of Scotland has now reached that temperature where active transmission is possible. So if you have infection, you will get a very high risk of onward transmission. And I think the next slide just shows the picture in Scotland, which isn't quite so black, but still there are large parts of Scotland where onward transmission is likely. So we're now in a position where we have the risk of onward transmission if we have active infection. Next slide, please. And on the 11th of July, we had our first case of infection in the new year. And since that, we've had 3 other cases. 2 of them were in sick sheep, single sheep on each premises. I've just put up there the clinical signs there. Those signs are on the gov.uk website, but the vets amongst you will recognise them as being very typical Bluetongue signs. And I think for me, the key was that these sheep were not responding to treatment, slightly different clinical presentations. One of the cases, the one in Hereford, was detected through a pre-movement test. And again, I'll just talk about pre-movement tests in a minute. And then the one in Norfolk was detected through private testing. Not 100% sure, but I think there was some suggestions of milk drop and general malaise in that herd, but not sufficient to be a report case. So I think the take-home message is we now have active infection. We believe that at least 3 of them, and probably all 4, were a result of overwintering of the virus and not wind-borne incursion. So that does mean that there is the likelihood that we've got disease in midges and so circulating in those areas. And as the temperatures increase and we get more cases, then that will only increase. So the rules in the zone. So within the zone, there are no restrictions on movements within the zone. So you can move to abattoirs, you can move between premises, and there are no Bluetongue restricted premises. And of those 4 infected premises, if I call it that way, none of those animals are under restriction, and the premises are not under restriction either. So, we are encouraging buyers to, ask sensible questions in terms of sourcing animals, but we're not putting them under restriction. We do have some restrictions on germinal products, so semen, ova, and embryos, and that essentially means that you can't freeze those products on farm without approval and without testing after collection. In terms of moving animals out of the zone, every animal moving out of the zone needs a license, whether that license is a general license or a specific license. So animals can move into Wales and Scotland to live, provided they have a negative pre-movement test, and those are specific licenses. So you need to apply for a license and make sure you apply for it in good time. Don't wait till you get your negative test result and then think you'll get a license immediately. You want to apply for the license, giving yourselves at least 10 days preferably, and then you need to make sure that that pre-movement test is arranged through your private vet in good time to get the results back. The one exception to a pre-movement test is for cattle that have been vaccinated with Bluetongue 3 and have gone through the complete vaccination program, which I think is two doses, and wait 21 days from that final vaccination. Those can move again under a license, but you do need a license, but they don't need a pre-movement test. And just a reminder that the rules for movements to slaughter haven't changed, so that's on a general license to a designated abattoir in Wales or Scotland. They can move to any abattoir in England. They don't need to be designated. So really my take-home message, if you haven't vaccinated already, please talk to your private vet to decide whether vaccination against Bluetongue 3 is the right thing for you and your animals. And particularly important if you trade outside of the restricted zone. There is quite a lot of guidance on gov.uk about what movement restrictions are, how you get a license, and there's some really good information on the Ruminant Health and Welfare website, again in terms of Q&A and tables of I want to move here and there, what sort of license do I need? Next slide. And really just coming to the end of this session, I perhaps was just going to say, and maybe I removed the slide, if you're in England, it is still a legal requirement to report suspect disease. You report it to APHA in the normal way, but unless there is a suspicion of foot and mouth disease or another notifiable disease, we won't be undertaking a veterinary inquiry, but your private vet will be given a unique code that will allow your private vet to submit up to 3 samples to Pirbright for diagnostic testing at DEFRA's expense. So I'll leave it there. There may be some specific questions after this, or we can pick up questions in the Q&A at the end. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gordon. Yes, I think there are some scenarios available online, and we can also go through some we've got prepared as questions later on. So thank you for that. Zara, I will invite you to share your screen. Oh, you're just on unmute. Unmute yourself.
Sorry, I can't see myself and the screen. Sorry, it's just taking a long time. It's not, we've practiced this a lot, but it's not working just now. Hang on. My screen is not coming up when...
If you'd like me to show them, I can, don't worry.
Ah, there we go, it's come up now. Okay, so that, you should be able to see my screen now, and the slides being shared. Is that right?
They're on, just not full screen.
Okay, it should. Is that working now?
The joys of technology.
We practiced this 3 times today and it's not working. Do you want to share them?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
There we go.
Sorry about that, everyone.
That's okay.
Okay, this is better. I can actually see myself. Okay. Okay, so good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much to Ruminant Health and Welfare and AHDB for giving me the opportunity to talk about the Do Not Wait Vaccinate campaign. So I'm a member of the Wales Animal Health and Welfare Framework Group who was really trying to steer this campaign and spearheaded, but really I just want to stress that this has been a cross-industry led campaign and initiative, which has been supported by many different organisations from within the veterinary community and the farming community as well. And I just wanted to single out really Phil Thomas and James Hopkins from Yakidara and the Wales Veterinary Science Centre. Phil's joined us this afternoon for the Q&A panel. So just over the next 10 minutes, what I'd really like to do is just to give a little bit of information about the situation in Wales, because it just provides some context to really why we felt that this very targeted, very specific campaign was required. So Wales is Bluetongue free. We have had no cases that have originated within Wales. So the cases that Gordon alluded to in the last vector season were bought-in cases. So these were animals that were purchased from areas of England that subsequently went into restricted zones. So these animals weren't showing clinical signs, they were picked up on surveillance. As a result, they were culled and we had no local spread into the midges. So we haven't seen any overwintered case like have been seen in England, because currently we haven't had any cases happening. And so really the policy has been focused on keeping disease out of Wales for as long as possible. However, things have changed. Before the 1st of July, we had the benefit of this 2-county sort of buffer zone between that border of the restricted zone and the border of Wales. But obviously, come the 1st of July, that extension of the RZ has brought the possibility of Bluetongue coming right up to the border. Now, we obviously know that midges don't respect borders, but really that created the opportunity for Bluetongue to be brought right up to that border and increase the risk of Bluetongue coming into Wales. We've seen those cases in Herefordshire, 20 kilometres from the border. Those animals were destined to come into Wales. So if we hadn't had the restrictions in place, we would have had cases happening in Wales by now. So this created some challenges and some decision making. So I thought it would be quite useful just to run over really how decision-making processes happen in Wales. So they are really guided by industry input. So we have our exotic disease preparedness group, which is a group that meets to discuss all the different exotic diseases threats. So this is led by the Office of the Chief Veterinary Officer and the exotic policy team, but it's also attended by stakeholders across the veterinary groups, the auctioneers groups, and also the farming unions too. So everybody is kept really up to date with what could happen and with what is happening. And more latterly, we've had the ministerial roundtable on Bluetongue. So once the restricted zone was announced that it would be extending in England, this ministerial roundtable was formed to discuss really the options that were on the table and really to help the minister come to the decision regarding animal health and welfare versus trade and trying to balance and weigh up the decisions. But what has been apparent through all of those conversations is that both last year when we didn't have vaccines, it was we really need these vaccines so that we can best protect the livestock from those devastating impacts that we've seen happening on the continent. We're very aware that as yet, Bluetongue hasn't entered high density areas. And there is real concern, particularly in Wales, we have an awful lot of sheep. We have a really high density of sheep right down that border. And there's real concern about what happens, because it is if now and not when, but what happens when Bluetongue spreads into Wales. When we had the vaccines that became available, there was really growing concern about their poor uptake. And so at every single meeting which has been attended, there's been this real drive to increase vaccination uptake and to do it in plenty of time as well, because we cannot vaccinate today and expect animals to be fully protected tomorrow. We've got to be ahead of the virus and vaccinate and give time for that immunity to build up. So moving on to the next slide. That's okay, Emily. So these are the current regulations in place in Wales. And these were brought in to help really keep Bluetongue at bay for as long as possible, with a view to allowing farmers to vaccinate. And this has really been the key of these restrictions being in place. And that was really driven by concern from within the industry. And it's really acknowledged our best way of having everything lifted and free movements is really by encouraging vaccination. But unfortunately, it's been really low. Now, around the time when these regulations were being put in place and being announced, unfortunately, rather than the main narrative being that we needed to get on and advise vaccination, we saw a huge amount of misinformation being spread across social media. So if you just move on to the next slide. So we were seeing things saying like there's no science behind the decision. This is an English livestock ban for no gain. It's going to kill off the industry, and this is the restrictions, not the disease. We were seeing this as was being imposed for separatist reasons, just to make different decisions to England. We were also seeing that farmers weren't listened to, which, as you've seen, was not correct. Farmers were listened to. And I think the one that hit hardest and created the most anger amongst actually farmers, and I had clients ringing me about this, was that the virus is harmless. And if you speak to anybody who's been affected by it, and those farms down in the southeast of England that are still seeing the knock-on effects now because of the effects of fertility of their bulls and their rams, it is not a harmless virus. We're also seeing myths spread about the vaccination. So vaccination doesn't work, it causes abortions, it causes infertility. So there was this huge amount of misinformation out there that was really taking the advantage that these restrictions was allowing us by being put in place, and really losing all of that opportunity. So then around that time, there was a big dinner that was happening in Cardiff Castle, and it's great in Wales because we have this one dinner every year facilitated by BVA Wales, and everybody's in the same room from right across the industry. So we have everybody from ministers, we have cross-party politicians, we have vets, we have farmers in the room, all of the unions represented. And at every single table that night, the conversation was around Bluetongue vaccination. And there was increasing sort of frustration that there was so much noise around these restrictions that weren't focused on why and the advantages of having them in place, which was to focus on vaccination. So from this meeting, from this dinner, it was decided we really needed to have a focused social media campaign in Wales. We wanted to really urge farmers to talk to their vets about vaccination, pick up the phone, discuss your concerns, look at the risks and decide whether you should vaccinate or not. We also wanted to provide reassurance by busting some of those myths surrounding vaccination as well as heavily signposts to the Battle Bluetongue resources that are out there already. This wasn't about creating a whole suite of other resources, but using those that are there to guide farmers to the best decisions for their flock or herd. And really what we wanted to do was for farmers to share that they have vaccinated, why they vaccinated, open up discussions with other farmers as well as to reassurance really about why they've done what they've done, and try and again bust some of those myths surrounding vaccination. At the same time, we worked with the Wales Veterinary Science Centre to run a webinar for vets in Wales. We had William Stevenson from Norfolk come and talk to us about his experiences of dealing with Bluetongue on farm. He was quite sobering actually in what he was relaying to us. We had reports of flocks losing 5% of their flock last year. And that was actually deaths from the whole flock, but actually massive impacts on fertility, abortions. They were seeing dummy calves in cattle as well. For the rams and the bulls that were affected, he's now testing those and finding that those are infertile. So these aren't just acute impacts, they are long-lasting impacts from this virus too. We also had the vaccine companies join us, and they were also able to answer a lot of technical questions. So really we wanted to really fill everybody with the facts. So before launching the campaign, we put together a Dropbox, which I'll put the link into the chat later, just with some useful resources, some starting social media posts for everybody to really start initiating these conversations. And so on the 8th of July, we launched with a couple of videos spread across some different social media platforms. You can see Phil there and I there. We also, importantly as well, had some Welsh language posts as well. We have a lot of farmers, particularly in the northwest and the southwest, where we will hopefully get more engagement, better understanding if we're putting things out bilingually as well. So that was quite important through the campaign. And then really that was just the catalyst. And then since then, we've been encouraging farmers to share their own experiences. So here we've got Hopkins Evans. He's not very far away from me. He can see England from his cattle sheds. And for him, he just said to me, I vaccinated, absolute no-brainer to me. Like, why would I take that risk? And so he posted to say that he had vaccinated, he'd just done his second dose, and that again stimulated some conversation under his post. Farmers Union of Wales, they spoke to some of their members and have encouraged them also to post about why they vaccinated. We had NFU Cymru in a great video from Abby Reader of her vaccinating her cattle and explaining how she'd gone through the decision-making process with her vet. And then since then, we've seen a flurry of social media videos. I think you'll have to click on quite quickly through all of these, but we've had a huge number of social media posts being shared, videos, pictures. We've got the British vets that are supporting us, the Farmers Union of Wales, NFU Cymru, and more recently the Chief Vet for Wales as well. And it's just all about everybody sharing what they've done, why they've done it, and again, providing reassurance, because this really is our best way of battling Bluetongue. We're still really, really concerned though, because we've still got, although vaccination rates are increasing, we're still at around less than 1% in sheep, and they're particular concern. So alongside the videos that are ongoing, it's great. There's lots of conversations going on social media today about it. We've also been posting these little mythbusters as well. So you see here, the virus is harmless. Why do I need to consider vaccination? And again, just counteracting some of these concerns that are being raised or reasons for failing to engage in discussions about vaccination. So again, we've put together quite a few of those. We're working with the unions, working with the veterinary associations as well, to feed in some of the common questions and provide very factual responses to those. So is it making a difference? Well, we only launched 2 weeks ago, but it's our Royal Welsh Show, a real chance this week to show off what Wales does so best in the agricultural industry. This year, we only have Welsh livestock there because of the Bluetongue risk. And we saw on the BBC News yesterday, the show vet saying they just couldn't take the risk for the livestock that were on the showground by risking Bluetongue coming to the show. So what we have seen this week is we've seen a real big shift towards a lot of conversations happening around vaccination. That's going on up and down the cattle and sheep lines. We were really lucky that yesterday the BBC News featured Vaccination Bluetongue, the campaign, all the way through the day on the news and also on radio. And then yesterday I came home to a message from a client who was at the show. He's posted on social media, and he just said he'd had questions all the way through the day on Bluetongue vaccination, and from the posts that he put on Facebook and Twitter. And he was just, again, having that conversation with fellow farmers, encouraging them to vaccinate, because I think we need to keep these conversations going. At the end of the day, everybody's individual and they can make their own decisions, but please do it in an informed way based on the facts and not misinformation. So if you've already vaccinated, then please help us by encouraging vaccination, by sharing it on social media and discussing it with other farmers. If you've not vaccinated yet, then please pick up the phone, speak to your vet, assess the risks. There are some really great resources there that Zoe's going to talk about now that will help you assess the risk and decide whether or which stock would be of benefit to vaccinate on your farm. So just want to say thank you, Diolch, and thank you again for allowing us to share what we've been up to this side of the border.
Thank you very much, Sarah. It's a really positive campaign, and hoping it's having some good effect. It's nice to see farmers talking about it and sharing their positive experience. It's important. Lovely, thank you. So we'll have Zoe come on now and talk a little bit about the resources available. So I think some of those situations that Gordon was talking about earlier, you can help farmers decipher with.
Brilliant, lovely. Thank you very much, Emily. And hello, everyone. I won't be too long. I just want to briefly show you the Bluetongue Movements Checker here on screen, which makes up part of the Battle Bluetongue toolkit for farmers and vets. This has recently undergone a few changes to incorporate updates from the Welsh and Scottish government websites and additional useful information you may need when moving your livestock. For those of you who are not familiar with the tool, AHDB, together with Ruminant Health and Welfare, produced this to help farmers navigate the changes imposed by the All England Restricted Zone, as Gordon mentioned earlier. as we appreciate there is a lot of information out there, and this is designed to help you cut through and find out exactly what you need to know for the move you'd like to make. So here we are. It will open up to the front page of the checker. This just explains the All England Restricted Zone situation from the 1st of July and the date the checker was last amended. It is important to note that your data will not be collected from this tool. It was designed as a survey, as we found this was the easiest way going forward to update it, whilst also maintaining a very user-friendly resource. So if we click next at the bottom here, the checker will then ask where you and your stock currently are, whether it's England, Wales or Scotland. So if we just click England there, and then from here, you can select where it is you wish to move to. So if we select Wales, for example, lovely, and then where specifically you want to go in Wales. So here, for example, we might want to go to a market. And then you can find out the information you need to know about travelling to a market in Wales from England. Here you can see the movement licences you will need, information about the approved red markets, and the pre-movement tests required. If, however, this was not the information you were after, you can scroll down to the bottom of the page and you can select No at the end. Here you will see a link to the Bluetongue Virus Hub on the Ruminant Health and Welfare webpage, where you'll be able to email us with your query, or you can phone up the Bluetongue hotline, where there'll be someone available to pick up your question. Alternatively, you can always restart the checker. So if we click Restart Questions, this time around, for example, you might still be in England, so we'll go with England, but you might wish to instead move to Scotland. So if we select Scotland there, and then perhaps onto an abattoir instead. So we'll go ahead with that. So again, here you can see the license you would need to make this move, along with the requirements of moving to an abattoir across the border. For example, you've got there the dawn and dusk conditions and the timing of slaughter. You can also see there the list of designated slaughterhouses towards the bottom if you'd want more information on that as well. So that is just a really quick run through of the checker. Please do go and check it out and have a look through the different scenarios, have a play around with it. Just so you know, we will be continually monitoring and updating this checker, as we appreciate Bluetongue is an ever-evolving situation. So we will be updating it as policies change. I would like to say thank you to DEFRA, Welsh and Scottish Government too for their input and guidance with the checker. It was incredibly valuable in helping us to encompass all the key information from their policies and put it into an interactive format. Lovely, so here on screen at the moment, we just have some of the useful tools and resources available both on the AHDB and Ruminant Health and Welfare websites to help you make an informed decision on vaccination. So, for example, if you want to weigh up the costs of vaccinating against the costs incurred with a Bluetongue infection, you can find our vaccination cost calculators available on the AHDB websites, which will weigh up the costs for you. Alternatively, if you're looking for more information about each of the vaccines available and their claims, you can take a look at the vaccine comparison tables. We also have a list of extensive FAQs available and much more on the Bluetongue Hub. Just to let you all know, we also have a fireside chat webinar 2 weeks today on the 6th of August to discuss the importance of vaccination against Bluetongue. You will be able to sign up to this much like the webinar today. However, this is going to take the form of a discussion rather than presentations. So please do go and sign up to this. You can find this on the AHDB webinars page. If I could have the next slide. There we are. I just wanted to highlight to you all as well that there is lots of additional support available to you if you are struggling or know of somebody who is. These organisations are also available on the Ruminant Health and Welfare website for you to find out more. And then finally, I'll just have my last slide. I would also like to thank all the expert groups involved with bringing this together and for their support. They have all been really, really vital in this. Right, that's all from me. Thank you all very much, and I will hand over back to Emily.
Thank you very much, Zoe, for that. I think others will agree it's a really useful tool to clearly see what requirements are in place. If we could have everyone back on screen now for the Q&A, and we should be able to drop that slide. So we've got a couple of questions already in, but please do just put your questions in the chat and we will come round to them. So I think for the first one, I will ask this to Gordon. Is there any intention to notify vets of Bluetongue cases in the same way HPAI cases are reported regularly by email?
So I think we're actively discussing that at the moment. What we don't want to do is bombard people with information they're not interested in. We're certainly going to do that at least on a weekly basis. But what I would urge anyone that wants to know, if you sign into the gov.uk webpage, the latest situation report, you can sign up to email alerts. And as soon as we get a confirmed case, we put a pen picture of the case on that, and you'll get an email as soon as that gets uploaded. So that's the quickest way of doing it, but we are just exploring whether or not we can do email alerts, etc. We are unfortunately expecting more than perhaps you would get through avian influenza. So again, we don't want to be, breaking people's inboxes and text alerts by every single case. So we'll do it proportionately.
Okay, thank you. Well, the comment was please bombard away, but actually would perhaps I'm not sure if we can. I'll try and have a look for the link for signing up to the alerts, whether or not we can put that in the chat box now to be shared, or send it round afterwards for those that have attended the webinar. That would probably be useful, hopefully. Okie dokie. And the next question was the map of temperatures that I think you shared, Gordon. Are they available to monitor, or was that just pulled by you? Is that available online?
No, it's produced by the Met Office. They do get produced by the Met Office, but it's on a sort of a quarterly report, so it's not publicly available. But obviously, I pulled it just to show those pictures.
Okay, that's all right. Lovely, thank you. And Phil, potentially this one for you. So, how do Welsh farmers buy sheep from English markets? What is required there?
So that would be a pre-movement test. Currently, there's no vaccine route through. It would only be through pre-movement testing.
Pre-movement testing. And is there anything, so just timelines of pre-movement testing, getting the test, getting results, and then moving off? What's that kind of timeline?
They've got to be had their test within 7 days of the move, and then it can take up to 5 days, I believe, for the results to come through. So it is quite tight.
Okay.
But that's where we're at.
I think in reality, the sheep in the market needs to have been pre-movement tested before they go to the market. And so I think if you're buying from an England market, ask the auctioneer whether they have been pre-movement tested, because practically it won't work otherwise. You'd have to almost send them back to the farm of origin, get them pre-movement tested to move in. But you can get them pre-tested, and the auctioneer will inform you of that.
Okay. Logically, do we know if we're seeing that happen? If they're going to a market and obviously not sure of who the buyer might be, it's a little bit of a gamble.
I think it's more likely for cattle, to be honest, rather than sheep.
Yeah.
It's quite a big expense in relation to a potential sale.
Yeah. And the next question is about do we have to vaccinate yearly? So I think I could go to you, Gordon, on this. What's the recommendation at the moment?
I mean, I think it's probably a veterinary question. it depends on the particular label recommendations. I mean, I think almost certainly there will be a recommendation to do it annually, but I think that's probably a veterinary question.
I'll just jump in and say that the vaccine companies at the moment are working on how long the vaccines work, because obviously they're relatively new vaccines, so they need to put them into the animals first and then continually challenge them with disease to see how long the vaccination intervals need to be. We're thinking that they will probably be annual vaccinations, but we're just waiting for that date to be confirmed. However, as I always say when anybody asks me about boosters, boosters are irrelevant unless you've vaccinated them in the first instance.
Yeah, they have other vaccines that are for different strains of Bluetongue in Europe, and they last a year, so they think that an annual booster would be required. But as Sarah has just said, it's the ongoing project.
Ongoing project. Lovely, thank you for that. Cattle are able to move from England to Scotland/Wales 21 days post full course Boltavo vaccine currently. Is there any view for this to be rolled out to sheep?
I think we can possibly bring Natalie in there, but the difference between sheep and cattle is that the vaccines currently have been shown to prevent viremia in cattle, which means that they won't have the virus circulating in their blood, and therefore they won't have the ability to pass it on and infect midges, which will go on and infect other animals. Whereas in sheep, we don't have that data at the moment, but perhaps I could pass over to Natalie to just come in.
Yes, by all means, although you've just stolen my thunder a little bit, Sarah. So that's exactly the reason. We're working with the vaccine companies to see if they can get data for sheep that will support a change in the policy. And we're working really hard to do that. And we've also got an eye for the future and what will be needed to allow us to support farmers even more than we are now.
Thank you very much. That's useful to know.
I mean, I obviously can't speak on behalf of Scotland, but I know that they're doing exactly the same.
Thank you, Gordon. So another question. So during, I think it was an NFU meeting this week, they heard a member had several cattle deaths following a vaccination. Has this been investigated to find the cause? I mean, that's quite a specific case, but I don't know if we've got any circumstances that might be a kind of myth-busting situation. Zara, have you heard of any cases like this?
I haven't, not surrounding Bluetongue vaccination, but I have had it surrounding other treatments where multiple treatments have been given. And where we see deaths like that, it's most likely linked to Clostridia, potential spreading through needles. I was just on a call earlier on today, actually, where Vanessa Swinson from APHA said that because of the dry weather, the heat, we are seeing far more clostridial diseases at the moment. So whenever we have any suspected or unexpected, because that would be a very unexpected reaction, there is usually something else going on. And this is where it's important to report it so that it can be followed up and that then the causes can be identified.
Thank you. That is a useful response. Okay, next one. How concerned are we about BTB12 infection in the UK, and what impact has this strain had in Europe so far? One for Gordon.
Well, there's been very little impact in Europe. I think there's been 12 cases in the Netherlands. It doesn't appear to have caused quite such clinical impact, but it's relatively small numbers, so it's not statistically significant. We've had the single case. We tested every other animal on that premises. It was just a single animal. We obviously also test other all cases for Bluetongue 12. We haven't found it. I think it's too early to tell. You can't say there will be no impact, but Bluetongue 3 is the one that we're really worried about. You know, it clearly has clinical impact, and as Sarah said, you know, it's not just the clinical impact in the animal, it's the, you know, the dummy calves, the the infertile bulls and that long-term, sort of iceberg type impact that we're worried about. And that may well happen for Bluetongue 12 as well, but we don't know yet.
Thank you. Phil, did I notice did you want to comment there? No, you're okay. And I guess going on from that, is there any kind of vaccine development or that we know of for both 3 and 12 in preparation, if there's?
So, I mean, we've obviously spoken to all of the vaccine manufacturers. It's on their list of things. Clearly, there will be commercial confidentiality involved, so they may not be open about that. I don't think there is one close to market, if I can put it that way.
Okay.
But it's obviously something. I mean, we would like a multivalent vaccine, 3, 12, and 8, or one combination or others of those to give that maximum protection. And I think they are working on those things. They've obviously brought these products to the market as soon as they can, and the quickest way to bring a product to a market is a single vaccine, a single strain vaccine. But I know that they would all like to produce a multivalent vaccine.
Okay, thank you very much. There's a bit more of a comment really about pre-movement testing and the cost surrounding that. I mean, it's got here £50 each. I don't actually know what that would be looking like. Is that something that you think would come down at all? Is that a cost reflective of just how many are being done at the moment?
I think PCR tests are PCR tests, and remember, it's the cost of sampling as well. The smaller the number, the bigger the overall cost. It's about that.
Thank you. Phil?
I was just going to ask, is there any sort of move on getting other laboratories able to do the PCR testing?
Put that to you, Gordon.
So I'm aware that a number of laboratories have been approached. They would need to be official laboratories. We would love to have more capacity. So there are at least 2 labs actively thinking about it and working through the options.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we had a couple of questions about Natalie, were you going to come in there?
No, it was just to support Gordon and say that in Wales also we're really conscious of the number of laboratories that can do this, and we're looking at that, but that isn't a short-term fix because of the requirements to become an official laboratory. So it's more of a long-term gain looking to the future.
Understand. Thank you. Sorry, there's a couple of comments about why is there a vaccine route for cattle and not sheep, but I think we've covered that. Do we have any information on the situation in terms of case numbers or build up across the channel this year? So Gordon, case numbers.
So I don't think there is anything in the Netherlands yet, but of course there's been widespread vaccination there and widespread amount of disease. There are certainly cases in France, both Bluetongue 8 and Bluetongue 3, and there are cases in Spain. So it started in the warmer areas and it's now spreading up through France. So we can expect more, but clearly countries that have actively vaccinated, and we know the Netherlands, for example, have vaccinated a very large proportion of sheep and a significant proportion of cattle, we would expect to see much less disease.
Yeah.
I was just going to come in and say that Italy saw a huge spike in cases in June. That was reported, a huge spike in cases there. And Slovenia have also gotten cases now in a couple of flocks as well. But like Gordon says, the countries where vaccination uptake is great, and the Netherlands, I think their vaccination uptake is over 95%, which I think also always demonstrates the impact that it's had previously. And so we wouldn't expect to see as many cases or as greater impact there this year.
That's a really good point, thank you. Another question, probably best maybe for Natalie. Do you think the restrictions from England to Wales will extend throughout the summer?
And we're halfway through the summer already, aren't we? Just to put it out there. We are doing our best to look ahead and look forward to sort of the key calendar dates, including the autumn sales. The current restrictions will stay as is whilst we're working on that, but we are actively working on what we can do, looking towards the autumn.
Okay, thank you very much. What are the consequences of having a BTV3 case on a holding in terms of slaughter or farm restrictions, compensation, etc., regardless of the potential economic losses?
I mean, I think in England, I think I probably answered that. I mean, basically, there are no consequences. We're not placing farms under restriction, and there are no movement restrictions on those animals for as long as they remain in England. Clearly, they can't move out of England because they can't move out of the RZ.
Do you just want to repeat? I know you mentioned that there's been a slight change in how APHA will be investigating. Yep. Recover that.
So if you have suspect clinical signs, it is still a legal requirement to report. It is still a notifiable disease. Reported in through APHA in the normal route. There will then be a triage discussion and provide, because obviously Bluetongue could have clinical signs that are similar to, or it could be foot and mouth disease. So clearly we want to rule out that suspicion. So if foot and mouth disease or other notifiable diseases other than Bluetongue can be ruled out, we will then give the private vet a code, a unique number, which allows 3 samples or up to 3 samples to be tested at Pirbright at government expense. But we do expect the farmer to pay for the actual sampling of those animals. Hopefully that call can be made on the farm and save a second visit going forward, or it can be sampled as part of the investigation. And then it's just like another report case. The farmer will be told the results, whether it's positive or negative. Obviously, if it's positive, it'll become a new case. If it's negative, well, then that's one of the differentials off the list.
Yes.
And we do allow private testing as well, where disease isn't suspected, but it could be.
It could be. Okay. Thank you very much. And I mean the compensation question there.
Well, we're not culling animals, so there is no compensation.
Yeah, no, just important to clarify.
Yep.
Lovely, thank you. And then I will come to Natalie. The same question to you in Wales. So the consequences if you had a case on a holding.
Sorry, every time I'm on my phone, so every time I miss the end of the question, were you just asking about the Welsh opinion?
Yes, please.
Okay, so in Wales, as it stands now, it would be like England of old. So if you have a positive case, then we will treat it as we would normally before, with culling and compensation. If it goes beyond that, we will consider where we are and how extensive it is and how severe it is.
Okay, thank you very much. This is a vet question for Zara possibly. How long do sheep vaccines for Bluetongue need to be separated from other vaccinations, e.g. Heptovac or Footvax?
Okay, so this is a question that we pose to the vaccine companies. And Phil, you'll have to just come in if I repeat this incorrectly, but they haven't, the standard response from a vaccine company is they haven't actually tested these vaccines alongside other vaccines, so they wouldn't be licensed for use for giving them at the same time. So therefore it's sensible to separate them out by a couple of weeks if you can, which I appreciate is extra handling, but that's if we follow the guidance on the licensing documents, that's what's stated. I missed anything, Phil?
Yeah, a lot of the information is on the Bluetongue vaccine reckoner that you have on your website. So there are slightly different nuances with each of the vaccines. So that's the best place to go and look that information up.
Fantastic. Good to know. Thank you. And then, so this is a question on vaccine availability. Will there be enough vaccines for all stock once Scotland joins the higher risk area? I can come to Gordon first, potentially.
I mean, I would argue that a lot of Scotland is already in the high risk area, particularly the border areas, and so at the moment there is no limit. Well, it depends which vaccine you want to vaccinate with. There are some limitations on some of the 3 vaccines, but overall there is a lot of vaccine available. There is no restrictions. If you want to vaccinate, there is vaccine out there.
And do we think kind of across the country that availability is the same? In Southwest, for instance, where there's pretty high density of cows.
I mean, these are commercial decisions, aren't they?
Yeah.
Wholesalers are only going to hold stocks if there is demand for it. So, I mean, I think the advice is to order it, put your back orders in, even if there is a perhaps that particular wholesaler or supplier hasn't got it in stock. Put that stock in, because otherwise they won't order it in. But I'm not aware of any issues now. There were, a few months ago there were some shortages, but there is more than enough in the country.
Yeah, that is positive to note. Thank you. Okay, on a question on pre-movement. So if a pre-movement test is not done before going to a sale and bought by a Welsh or Scottish person, does the animal need to go into quarantine for a length of time before testing for movement? I think we probably slightly answered this earlier, but Phil, do you want to just cover that again quickly?
Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's any requirement for quarantine, but they would have to stay in England. That's essentially it.
Yeah, I think with the timing, like you said, moving within 7 days, but could wait 5 days to get the result back, then it would be quite.
I mean, practically speaking, they're going to have to go back to the premises of origin and then be tested to move on if they haven't got a pre-movement test already.
Yeah.
As regards the wholesaler question about availability across the country, there's only really sort of 4 wholesalers that they all work nationally really now, so the availability should be the same for everybody. And we would like to be in the position where we are pushing the wholesalers to be keeping up with demand. At this point, the supply exceeds the demand. It has been the other way around, but at this point, it's that way around.
That's good to know. Thank you. Question on when is the predicted peak time for the outbreak this year? Gordon?
All the modelling suggests that you get the max or the peak number of cases during September.
September. Okay.
Yep.
Just to chip in there. So again, thinking ahead, if we're looking towards September, that's only actually 6 weeks away. If we're looking to get 2 vaccinations in and allow the time for full immunity to develop, we can't wait till this build up if we want to get the most out of the vaccines and to get that protection in.
So, and what is that time for full immunity, Zara?
It can take up to several weeks in cattle. I think about 3 weeks in sheep. Am I right there, Phil? Yeah.
Thank you. The APHA advice we had in Scotland apparently said the ambient temperature of 13.2 degrees still took many weeks to replicate. Is that no longer accurate information if Gordon says transmission is now possible? I can't remember the map exactly of what the ambient temperature was. I thought, did you say 15? I
mean, that was the cumulative temperature. So yes, it can take several weeks in some of those areas. So you might not get that sort of 30-day turnaround or whatever, but that's not to say that you won't get transmission. So, I mean, there could be some parts that are sufficiently cold, but it's pretty warm everywhere at the moment. So,
okay, thank you. As vets, is the testing authorised for suspect cases by APHA for any vet to undertake, or just OVs?
it's from a DEFRA perspective, it's any vet.
Any vet? Yeah.
Do you want me to come in Wales as well? Yeah, it's any vet.
Any vet. Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you. That answers that. Do I need a specific Bluetongue licence to move my animals from Scotland to Wales through the restricted zone?
No, provided you don't stop. You're not allowed to stop, pick up, drop off. It has to be a single move through, the most direct route you can take. Obviously, if you have an emergency, you can stop, but we don't know. Otherwise, no. And that's really a Welsh or Scottish requirement as such. You can drive into England as long as you don't leave England.
Yeah, that's good to know. Nothing to add there, Natalie.
No, obviously my trigger finger is a bit slower than Gordon's. Sorry.
Perfect, thank you. Right, we are coming to the end of our time, but we've got, well, fit in a couple more, I think. If your sheep in England are vaccinated, will that impact on the pre-movement test? Will it show positive? So, Phil, what are your thoughts on
that? Potentially, if you've only just done it. So in that first few days, you're injecting what is essentially antigens from the virus in a vaccine, a killed vaccine. So that could interfere with the test, and Gordon can correct me, but you would probably wouldn't want to test within a week of vaccinating.
Yeah, we're advising 7 days after the last vaccination before you retest. Obviously, it depends what test you ask for. You would expect a positive serology test if they're vaccinated. The pre-movement tests are PCR, so that should not impact it, but don't do it within 7 days, because we have had, in inverted commas, false positives, I guess you would call them a false positive, where samples have been taken a day after vaccination, and then you've gone back a week later, tested them, they're negative. So it's just not, there's no point testing within 7 days of vaccination.
Okay, thank you very much. This is from a vet. We as a practice made an error and didn't inform farmers they had to report the Bluetongue vaccination. What do you recommend they do for that? So I guess there would be a delay between people that may have vaccinated.
That's fine. We're not going to come and prosecute you for late reporting, if it was a genuine error. So please report. It's in everyone's interest to better understand that. And it also means that, if those animals are moving around at some stage in the future, we'll have that record. We'll be able to verify that they have been vaccinated. Particularly important for cattle, obviously, but important for sheep as well. So yeah, just report it in.
Perfect. Thank you very much. That's useful to know. We'll have a final question then. So for moving animals into Wales, there are requirements about which tests are needed for cattle in the 3rd trimester of pregnancy. Are these requirements the same as for sheep, i.e. PCR and ELISA? Gordon might come to.
So Natalie will correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that it is only PCR for sheep, because the PCR signal is picked up for long enough because the gestation length is shorter. It's only for cattle where the PCR signal may have dropped off for those early inseminations or services. So no, it's just PCR for sheep.
Thank you. And do you agree, Natalie? trigger finger not quite there, but that's all right. Okay. Fantastic. We will leave it there for questions. So thank you very much to all of our speakers this evening. So from Zoe, just remember there that the resources are available on the AHDB website and the Ruminal Health and Welfare website. So use that Bluetongue movement checker, really useful resource there, and the cost calculators if you are still only considering vaccination. We heard from Zara with a really positive do not wait, vaccinate campaign. So I will say, I think if there's other farmers out there that have vaccinated and are happy to share that they've done so on social media, whether you're in Wales or in England, I think it's just a really positive movement. So yeah, thank you for kind of spearheading that as well, along with others. Phil, thank you very much for joining us to give us a Welsh perspective, and Gordon and as well, Natalie, thank you very much, and Gordon for your expertise on all the kind of policy and updates on cases. So thank you very much. I will leave it there. Please do give your feedback, and remember that there is another webinar in a couple of weeks' time on the 6th of August that will be a bit more discussion based as well. So look out for that. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Emily.